Introduction to Classical Tibetan, Lesson 6-2, Relative Clauses. Relative clauses are frequently found in Classical Tibetan and sometimes pose some difficulty for beginners. We'll spend our entire lesson today focusing on them. Relative clauses function similarly to adjectives in a sentence. They add information about the nouns in the sentence. If we say, for example, the bodhisattva who desires to attain Buddhahood practices on the path, the phrase who desires to attain Buddhahood describes the subject, bodhisattva. This is a relative clause. In Tibetan, relative clauses are either placed right after the noun that they modify without a particle, or they occur right before the noun, joined by a connective particle. This is the same way that adjectives function when they're connected to nouns. Relative clauses always end with the infinitive form of a verb, that is, a verb ending in pa or ba. With adjectives, if we want to modify, say, the noun ch, dharma, with the adjective karpo, white, we can write it in one of two ways. Ch karpo or karpe ch. These both have the same meaning, white dharma. We can do the same thing with relative clauses. So if we want to modify the noun Sangye, Buddha, with the relative phrase Chu Tenpa, taught the Dharma, we can say Sangye Chu Tenpa or Chu Tenpe Sangye. Both of these mean the Buddha who taught the Dharma. When we translate relative clauses, we relate them to their noun using words like who, that, which, and so on. Look at the examples on pages 81 and 82 of your textbook for more practice with this. A relative clause can modify any noun in a sentence, not just the subject. When relative clauses are added to a sentence, they can make the sentence much longer and more complex. It's important to keep in mind, though, that a noun and a relative clause form an inseparable unit that has to be kept together, just like a nominal group. It is important to keep this point in mind, especially when multiple relative clauses can be found in a sentence. When you come across a long sentence with multiple relative clauses, follow these steps. First, find all of the relative clauses by looking for verbs in their infinitive form. Find the noun that that clause modifies. Translate just that unit on its own. Next, look at the modified noun that you've just translated. What role does it play in the sentence as a whole? In other words, ignore the relative clause for a moment and try to figure out what function the noun plays in a sentence. Is it the subject? The object? Look for particles that occur with the noun to try to figure this out. Let's try an example together. Sangye ki dikpa chepe mila che teno. First, let's start by looking for the final verb. That's easy. Ten, taught. Now can we find the agent of this verb? Sangye is marked by an agentive particle, so we can be fairly certain that the sentence starts with the Buddha taught. So now there's the rest of the sentence. We have this long string of words ending with a ladun, so remembering that la can mean to, we can infer that the Buddha taught something to someone. So bracketing the phrase in front of the la for now, we're left with ch, dharma. Okay, so far we have the Buddha taught the Dharma, then the ladun. So the Buddha taught the Dharma to someone. Who did he teach it to? Work from right to left. Me, person. So then what are we left with? Dikpa chepa, which is connected to me with a connector particle. Chepa is an infinitive form of a verb, so we can be pretty certain that this is a relative clause modifying the noun me. So we have dikpa chepa. Dikpa means evil deed. Dikpa chepa is to do an evil deed. If this modifies the noun me, we can translate this as the person who commits evil deeds. Now, remembering that me is marked with the la particle, we know that it's the person to whom the Buddha taught the Dharma. So altogether, this sentence reads, the Buddha taught the Dharma to the person who commits evil deeds. Let's try one more. Kong yang mi mepe yul du do. Do is the final verb. Moving to the left, we have du, which is a Latin particle. To the left of that is the noun yul, meaning place. So, someone goes to a place. Moving to the left, we have a connector particle. We know that something is connected to yul. Looking to the left of that, we see mepa. The pa here tells us that this is an infinitive verb. Since it's connected to yul, we know that this is a relative clause. Mepa means without. Without what? Looking to the left, we see mi, person. Mi mepa, without people. When we connect it to yul, we get the phrase, a place which is without people. So, someone goes to a place which is without people. Moving to the left of that phrase, what do we find? Kongyang. Now we know that this is the subject of the sentence. So altogether it's he also goes to a place that is without people. In general, when you're working through a longer sentence, look for the final verb. Figure out what kinds of particles you might expect to see in the sentence and find those. From there, look for relative clauses and piece them together individually. Again, it sometimes helps to move from right to left as you're working with Tibetan sentences. If you can break things apart into smaller groups, you should have an easy time translating sentences. Look at the examples on pages 83, 84, and 85 in your textbook. If you have any questions, please ask about them on the discussion board. Let's review what we've been over today. Relative clauses function similarly to adjectives. They modify nouns, and they can occur before the noun, joined with a connector particle, or they can occur immediately after the noun with no particle. A relative clause contains a verb in its infinitive form ending with pa or ba. Relative clauses and the nouns that they modify form an inseparable unit of a sentence.